The widow, a striking woman with an aura of elegance and a determined spirit, finds herself at the center of attention. Wealthy suitors in the city whisper among themselves, intrigued by her beauty and newfound fortune. But unlike the eager men vying for her hand, the widow has her own plans. With a stern resolve, she steps into her new role. A week after her husband's funeral, she visits the plantations to inspect the estate's operations. Determined to see how the wealth had been maintained, as she observes the laborers working under the hot sun, she is struck by their endurance and resilience. Her actions raise eyebrows, for it is unusual for a woman of her standing to personally oversee the plantation's workings. She returns to the city, driven by an idea that few would understand. The following day, she heads to the bustling market, where men and women are being sold. With a sharp eye, she selects 10 strong workers, ignoring the whispers of the onlookers. The widow's motives are clear to her but remain a mystery to others. What drives her sudden interest in the labor force? The widow's new role is unprecedented. She now possesses the authority to command, manage, and make decisions independently. In a society where women were often relegated to the background, her position as head of the estate is both empowering and isolating. Historians like Catherine Clinton, in The Plantation Mistress, Woman's World in the Old South, describe how widowed women of the South were often thrust into positions of power, managing large estates that would have otherwise been controlled by men. This unexpected authority allowed them a measure of autonomy, albeit one shrouded in the constraints of a deeply patriarchal society. The widow's presence on the plantation becomes more pronounced. She is not merely overseeing operations, she is redefining how the estate is run. The grand mansion, once a symbol of her husband's dominance, now becomes the center of her authority. The lavish rooms that once hosted elegant gatherings are now occupied by the widow's solitary presence, making decisions that will impact the lives of all who live on the estate. Her days are filled with meetings, inspections, and strategic decisions that ensure the estate remains prosperous. The estate's workers notice changes in the widow's demeanor. She is firm yet fair, attentive yet distant. Her interactions with the laborers are marked by an unusual blend of curiosity and command. Unlike many of her peers, the widow is deeply aware of the injustices that underpin her wealth. But she is also aware of her own role within this system, a role that is both powerful and morally complex. Historian Elizabeth Fox Genovese, in Within the Plantation Household, notes that many Southern widows faced similar moral dilemmas. In a world where power dynamics were defined by rigid social structures, these women had to navigate both personal and ethical challenges. The widow's daily routine becomes a blend of calculated decisions and silent reflection. The estate's grandeur is both a source of pride and a constant reminder of the immense responsibility she carries. She is acutely aware of the expectations placed upon her, not only as a woman of wealth but as the sole manager of a massive estate. In a society that views widows as vulnerable and in need of male guidance, she defies these stereotypes. Her decisions are driven by pragmatism, survival, and a desire to maintain control over her circumstances. Despite the social constraints of the time, the widow finds a peculiar sense of freedom in her position. Unlike married women, who were often bound by their husband's rules, she has the autonomy to make her own choices. This newfound independence, however, comes with its own set of challenges. She must balance the need for profit with the ethical considerations of managing the plantation's operations. The laborers, who are at the mercy of her decisions, experience both the weight of her authority and the consequences of her choices. As weeks turn into months, the widow's management of the estate becomes more confident. She is no longer seen as a grieving woman but as a formidable figure in the community. Her actions, though unconventional, are respected by her peers. She has not only maintained the estate's wealth but has also ensured its sustainability in a competitive economy. Her story is one of survival, ambition, and the pursuit of agency in a world that sought to limit it. While the widow's decisions may be controversial, they reflect the complex realities faced by women in the antebellum South. Her choices, shaped by a blend of ambition and necessity, redefine her role on the plantation. The estate, once governed by her husband's firm hand, now operates under her strategic command. Her journey is not just one of personal empowerment but a testament to the broader struggle for women's agency in a society that often denied it. The widow's tale is a story of resilience, ambition, and the pursuit of power within a rigid social structure. Her actions, though shaped by the harsh realities of the era, also highlight a personal quest for control and stability. In a world defined by hierarchy and inequality, she becomes both a product and a challenger of the very system that sought to confine her. The psychological dynamics between widowed plantation owners and enslaved men in the antebellum South were both complex and deeply disturbing. For the widows, these relationships were a misguided attempt to cope with the profound sense of loneliness that often came with the death of a husband. These relationships were not just a form of coping, however, they were fraught with internal conflict. Widows knew they were violating strict social codes, risking both their reputation and their status in a deeply judgmental society. This awareness often triggered a tumultuous mix of guilt, fear, and the constant anxiety of being discovered. These emotions could lead to unpredictable behavior, ranging from moments of unexpected kindness to abrupt and harsh outbursts, which further confused and destabilized the enslaved men involved. The enslaved men, on the other hand, were caught in a position of powerlessness. These relationships were not consensual in any genuine sense. They were coerced, shaped by the overwhelming authority the widow wielded over them. Enslaved individuals faced a constant threat of punishment, and the psychological manipulation employed by the widow left them in a state of perpetual distress. They were caught between compliance and resistance, fully aware that any refusal could result in severe repercussions. The psychological toll of this coercion was immense, leaving the men with deep scars that were both emotional and mental. The dynamics of these interactions took on a different shape when the woman in question was a widow. Without a male authority figure in the household, the widow held complete control over the estate and its inhabitants. Widows often sought to fill the emotional and psychological void left by their husband's death through relationships that would have been unthinkable in other circumstances. For them, the absence of a husband offered a peculiar kind of freedom, a freedom that was both liberating and dangerous. Unlike married women, who were often constrained by their husband's authority, widows could act on their desires without immediate oversight. Though the risk of scandal always loomed large, the secrecy surrounding these relationships was even more intense for widows. With no husband to provide a facade of respectability, the widow had to manage these interactions with exceptional care. She was aware that discovery could lead to public disgrace, social isolation, or worse. This need for discretion added a layer of danger and excitement but also intensified the psychological strain on both parties. Widows, who were often isolated in their grief, found themselves balancing emotional needs with the risk of exposure. This complex blend of emotions created a situation that was both fragile and volatile. While relatives, friends, and neighbors of the widow were not always fully aware of the nature of these relationships, they were often suspicious. When a widow acquired new enslaved workers, especially young, strong men, it sometimes raised eyebrows within her social circle. Southern society was characterized by unspoken rules and an understanding of the unspoken. It was commonly accepted that widows, now in control of vast estates, had both the means and the opportunity to engage in relationships that would be scandalous if publicly revealed. Despite the awareness of these potential transgressions, there was a culture of silence surrounding the personal lives of widows, particularly those related to their interactions with enslaved workers. This silence was not merely a product of societal norms, it was also a way of maintaining a semblance of order and respectability in a deeply hierarchical and judgmental society. The prevailing social structure, deeply rooted in both racial and gender hierarchies, often provided widows with a veneer of respectability that was rarely questioned, even when their actions crossed established boundaries. Members of the widow's social circle, from family to neighbors, were often aware of the loneliness, unfulfilled desires, and isolation that widows experienced. While these factors sometimes led women to seek comfort in unconventional ways, society largely avoided acknowledging these realities. The purchase of new enslaved workers, particularly young men, was often interpreted as a sign of the widow's intentions. But such interpretations were rarely spoken aloud. This culture of silence served both to protect and to confine the widow, allowing her actions to go unchecked while also trapping her in a web of secrecy. Historians such as Stephanie E. Jones Rogers, in They Were Her Property, White Women as Slave Owners in the American South, and Catherine Clinton. In The Plantation Mistress, Woman's World in the Old South, provide essential insights into these dynamics. They highlight how relationships between white women and enslaved men, while not openly discussed, were often known or suspected within the community. These stories have been largely overshadowed by the broader narrative of slavery, but they are crucial for understanding the complexities of power, race, and gender during this era. They reveal a side of plantation life that was hidden from public view, but that played a significant role in shaping the lived experiences of both the enslaved and the enslavers. These untold stories offer a deeper glimpse into the intricate and often contradictory world of Southern plantations. They underscore the harsh realities faced by enslaved individuals, who were subjected to both labor exploitation and personal coercion. For the widows, these relationships were a way to assert control and fulfill personal desires in a world that offered them few opportunities for autonomy. However, this control came at a heavy psychological cost. The widows often found themselves caught between societal expectations and personal desires, leading to a life marked by secrecy, conflict, and inner turmoil. The broader Southern society of the time was marked by its own contradictions. On the one hand, it enforced strict racial and gender hierarchies that dictated social interactions. On the other hand, it maintained an unspoken acceptance of certain transgressions, particularly when committed by those with social power and wealth. This duality created an environment where relationships that defied societal norms were not entirely hidden, yet not openly acknowledged. The culture of silence that surrounded the private lives of widows was not just a means of preserving social order. It was also a reflection of the complexities and contradictions inherent in the society itself. The untold stories of these relationships provide a crucial perspective on the complexities of plantation life. They highlight how power dynamics shaped every aspect of life, from labor to personal interactions. These narratives also reveal the psychological impact of these relationships on both the enslaved and the enslavers, offering a more nuanced understanding of the intersection between power, race, and gender in the antebellum South. What are your thoughts on this overlooked part of history? Why do you think these stories have been omitted from the broader narrative of slavery? Feel free to share your thoughts below and engage in this important discussion. If you're interested in exploring more untold stories of history, please support our channel, The Black History Archives, by subscribing and clicking the bell icon. Check out our other videos for more insights into history that you may not have learned in school. Let's continue to uncover and share these critical stories, one video at a time.